Okay. Good afternoon and welcome, guys. It is NFP Friday. The time is finally here. Now, listen, if you're a Globex 360 account holder and you're with me for our advanced setup prior to this public event, everybody should be in profit right now as we speak. So it is NFP Friday. We've taken some early entries into the market to try and be in a profitable position prior to the data coming out. Now, again, if you're not a Globex 360 account holder, what are you doing, right? We break it down, we go through the data, we debate it, we analyze, we look at markets, and we trade together. There is no other community on earth other than Globex 360 live TV. Now, guys, NFP Friday, what does it mean? It's a quick summary, super simple, right? We get fundamental data, usually the first Friday of every month, due to February being a leap year. We're getting it the second Friday of March. Now, what does this data mean? It's simply the US labor market, how many people are filing for employment, unemployment rate, so on and so forth. So for a lot of people, fundamental data racks their brain, right? And they get stressed about it. They worry about the numbers. The reality is it is super simple to break down the data and to look at the information. Now, I just want to state what we're doing here is not financial advice in any way, shape or form. Everything we're doing here is traders doing things together for an educational entertainment purposes, right? Building a community, we're able to chat, speak about things, dive through the data together. There was a brilliant comment there Stephen just made, really struggling mentally, losing big today, and how mad this plays with your mentality. It is mad. NFP is mad. Trading is nuts sometimes, and it's about having a community to rely on, to ask questions, to get the answers to the questions you have, and even share, because remember, not any one person is right. A lot of people ask for a signal. A lot of people ask for a bias. The reality is no one person on earth knows where markets are going to go. There wouldn't be poverty on earth. There wouldn't be any issues whatsoever across the board. So the reality is we take the data we have, past events, the price action, we put it all together for a high probability outcome, right? Now, for today's event, we have a bit of data that I want to run through with you guys, and we're going to skip the news. We're going to jump straight into the fundamentals, and I'll speak to you guys about where the markets are positioning from a mentality or sentimental point of view, right? The NFP data is coming out the next 11 minutes and 20 seconds. So we are going to be jumping into that, right? So let's open up the news. Let's open up some of that fundamental data and let's have a look at what the markets have to offer us. And I'm going to quickly break down what are going to be the biggest items we need to be paying attention to this afternoon. So this is the data that we're going to be receiving this afternoon, and it's primarily going to be the unemployment rate for the US, non-farm payrolls, as well as private non-farm payrolls down below. Now, what we need to understand is that this data is in the current climate of where the US is. So if you're a Globex 360 account holder, we streamed Powell's testimony live on Tuesday. We streamed Powell's testimony again live on Wednesday, understanding why they are hiking the interest rate, what the effect is on the economy, and what are the supposed outcomes that they are looking for. Powell got hammered by different members of Congress saying, is he aware of the effects that are busy happening, so on and so forth. But what we need to understand is that rising interest rates in the US is to avoid recession, right? It's to avoid rampant inflation and then a recessionary outcome happening naturally. Inflation, rising interest rates is curbing inflation, but can also lead and push the US economy into recession. So the reason why this labor data in most cases is super important, but why it is absolutely fundamental today is that it's one of the biggest cases that Congress is bringing up against Powell, saying, hey, listen, all these things are happening. Are you seeing the data that you need to prove that your raising of interest rates is a good thing to fight inflation? Now, if you guys listened on the Powell testimonies, right, and I thought about something just as we ended the advanced setup, is that Powell hinted to the fact that we're asking him for a definitive outcome. Is he going to raise interest rates at the end of March? By how much? How quickly? They're pressing him for answers. And he left them with a couple pieces of information. There's some key data that the Fed is still waiting for. One of those key data points is what we're going to be getting today with NFP, PPI, and CPI. Now, I was thinking about this quite clearly and wondering to myself, but if Powell was seeing the data already from his side, right, looking slightly negative. So again, one of the objectives for the Federal Reserve is to increase unemployment. I know it sounds crazy, but that's the truth, right? They need to cool down this hot US labor market. Now, if he was seeing that data, he would have said, hey, listen, the things we've been doing is working. We're seeing the labor market cool down, so on and so forth. He did not say that. He said, rather, we are waiting for this key data. Now, these are some of the smartest people on earth in that room, and they're waiting for this data. This leads me to believe, right, and I have a personal belief, we could see data higher than expected today, which will give Powell the ammunition. It's obviously hiking interest rates even further. So what does that mean? The data comes out higher than expected. What does that mean, right? So everything outside of unemployment, right? Non-farm payrolls, if that comes out higher than expected by more than 215 or 220,000, that's going to be positive for the dollar. Private non-farm payrolls, if it comes more than 210, so close to 220, 225,000, positive for the dollar. If unemployment rate comes out below 3.4%, meaning less people unemployed, positive for the dollar. Now, what does that do for the stock market? What does that do for US 30, NASDAQ, so on and so forth, right? The stock market is worried that if they keep seeing positive data, it's going to put ammunition in Powell's hand to either come in at a 0.25, which is pretty much expected in terms of interest rate increases, but a full 50 basis points. That's what the markets are scared of. So if the data is positive today on the dollar, the US 30, NASDAQ, the S&P 500 will sell off tremendously. That is where my current bias is, and that is why in our previous session with our advanced analysis with clients, we're looking at the probability of shorting out the US 30, right? This is the US 30 here behind us. We've already taken a short opportunity, right? If you're a client and you're with us in our previous session, please drop in the comments that you're already in a short. We are already in profit on US 30, right? So again, if the data comes out positive and the US 30 falls through the floor, we've already entered a position. That position we entered was exactly at 7 minutes to 2 this afternoon, anticipating as we broke down the data. And again, this isn't about a signal, this isn't about a direction, this is about looking at past data, looking at the price action, looking at the probability of a market move. Now, this afternoon is super simple. We're in profit in a position already. If you're not in a position, you're not in profit, don't worry about that. As the data comes out, we will interpret the data, and it is going to be big, it is going to be massive. Please, and I do want to urge you, if you're trading anywhere else or wherever you're trading, if you're trading whatever the case may be, please, this afternoon is going to be big. We're going to see big numbers, big moves. The key to trading is not to try and, as Instagram would have you believe, take $100 to $1 million overnight. It's about making incremental gains and progress. You want to be here for a long time, not a good time and a short time, right? So again, please, risk management is absolutely key. Again, if you are in profit with me already on the US30, then just put up your hands and let us know. What we're looking to do this afternoon is look at price action in terms of a breakout, in terms of the data, in terms of the numbers. But again, markets are going to move exceptionally quickly this afternoon. Pending orders will not work. Due to the amount of volume, we are going to see and could see slippage in the markets if you have a pending order in place, right? So that is super important. That's why we're going to go for manual entries to try and capitalize on any big and substantial moves. Now, I'm currently looking at US30 on a 1 minute time frame. And again, we shorted the market yesterday. If you were live with us yesterday, or you were a Globex 360 account holder client with us yesterday, we shorted out the US30 yesterday afternoon for a massive move in the markets, right? US30 moved over 7,000 pips already, or 70,000 points. So we're already in that short from yesterday. We've made some good profits, some good gains already as part of that. But looking at where we currently are in terms of that move from yesterday, we are in a retracement process. We're pushing up into that 23.6 fib level, and that is where we're looking at a breakout above that. We would be looking to buy. However, should the data come out positive, we are looking to short and hold our shorts towards the downside. Now, again, there is going to be a ton of volume this afternoon. So if you are a Globex 360 account holder and you are in a short with me, what I will be doing is closer to the data, closer to the numbers, I'll be tightening my stop loss on my short position. The only thing you need to be aware of in doing that is there may be a bit of volume, right? Or even a potential whipsaw, meaning some data positive, some data negative. Because again, remember, it doesn't mean that all the data is going to come out positive or negative. You could get a bit of a mixed bag where, let's say, unemployment is slightly higher, but more jobs were created, right? That would cause the market to initially react with a bit of a whipsaw, and then thereafter interpret the data and understand. And it's up to the markets to determine where they're going to place their favor, what is of high importance to them long term, what data point there is more likely to affect the Fed's decision in that interest rate announcement for the end of the month. Because remember, that's the big play. The data is just the data. Markets are priced in inflation. Markets are priced in all these other items. What we're seeing today is not about the data today. It's about how will this affect the Fed's decision towards the end of the month. Now, again, if you're not already a Globex 360 account holder, down below, open up your account. All our live broadcasts, our education, our academy, everything is free for those who have Globex 360 live accounts, right? So if you want to cover the rest of these events, you want to learn, you want to be able to understand the world financial markets and how they work and how they integrate into pure price action, that is definitely where you want to be, right? So in terms of where we are now, obviously we have had that market push down. We're seeing a little bit of a build up. Now looking at this last bit of a candle here. Again, there's a 1 minute time frame, super small time frames. But again, what we're looking for here is essentially just to tighten that stop loss as we get closer to the data point. And then what I will be doing for this is I'm going to be sharing the data on the screen for you guys, right? So meaning we don't have to switch between calendars. We should be in a position to view both screens same time, right? So something a little bit like that. So in that way, we'll be able to see the market structure, which is obviously there in front of us, and then obviously interpret the data as it comes out, and then be able to trade and take positions, right? So again, if you're not in any position, we would need to then obviously get that positive data in for the dollar, right, to cause a sell-off, and then we would start to trade essentially short positions below the 32 32,115, so 32,115. If the data is negative on the dollar, then again we would change that strategy to start buying out above the 23.6, which would be the 32 or 3,221. So it's 32,221 mark, right? That is essentially what we're setting up for this afternoon. So we are 2 minutes away, guys. Hold on to your seats. It is going to be big. It is going to be massive. So if you're already in a profitable position, this is about the time I would say go ahead and tighten up that position, right, a little bit, because there will be a little bit of volatility. I'm simply just tightening up my stop loss to my entry point on my current position as we lead up few seconds before that data comes out. We are about a 1 minute and 30 seconds away. We obviously just want to make sure we don't get taken out due to any sort of volume that's kicking in the markets. But again, should we obviously move into negative data territory on the dollar, that would then be what we want to look for in terms of looking for a potential buy opportunity on the markets, right? So we are going to be sitting back on that one. We will be relaxing and allowing the data to play out and do what it is that data does best, which is obviously move and or present itself. So that's the position we're placing ourselves in, and we're simply going to allow the data to come out and then deal with the data as it comes out. Now we are a couple seconds away. It is going to get crazy. It is going to get messy. So in terms of the data, unemployment rate, if it's lower than expected, hugely positive for the dollar. If the non-farm payrolls is higher than expected, hugely positive for the dollar. Private non-farm payrolls higher than expected, hugely positive for the dollar. Inversely, if unemployment goes up, negative for the dollar, meaning we will see NASDAQ, otherwise the Dow Jones also rise. If we see non-farm payrolls come in short under the 205, we will see NASDAQ rise. If we see private non-farm payrolls come in short, we will see these items rise. So let's give it in. Let's see. We are about 10 seconds away. So let's have a look at what happens here. So I'm tightening my stop loss to break even. Right, so there we go. Oh, we're getting, let's see. Okay, so unemployment rate is higher than expected. Let's jump in there. Private non-farm payrolls is positive. Private non-farm payrolls is also positive, right? So we want to jump in there, and it's going to be a mixed bag. We're going to see a ton of volume in the market. I've got in a buy there, and I'm going to essentially just put my buy entry, buy stop loss at entry. We are going to see a ton of volume in the market here, and let's see what ends up happening here, right? Because the unemployment rate is hugely important, those buys are kicking in there, and you can go ahead and close up some of your position there for a profit, or move your stop loss to that entry point, right? Huge whipsaw in the market, but let's see how this plays out. So our sell positions have been closed out, and our buys in terms of manual entry should have started to move there, right? We are around about 700 pips in profit, and I'm simply going to hold this one as we look at that data even closer, right? So unemployment rate 3.6%, much higher than expected, exactly what the Fed wanted. Non-farm payrolls 311, while private non-farm payrolls is 265. In terms of average hourly earnings, that's slightly down. In terms of average hourly earnings month on month, that's also slightly down. So this will mean the stock markets will benefit from that. So we are on that buy right there. It's going to mean a weaker dollar across the board. So if you're holding that buy there, we're running currently at the moment for $16,000 in that buy position right there. Start to move your stop loss into profit. I'm going to utilize a trailing stop this afternoon of about 10,000 points, which is going to represent about 1,000 pips in terms of stop loss. As this market moves, it will drag my stop loss with it and allow this market to move and just shake as it wishes, right? So stop loss should be at entry. Beautiful stuff. All right, beautiful stuff, beautiful stuff. Right, so again, what this is going to mean for the rest of the markets, again, that weaker dollar will then cause a buy opportunity again on gold, right? Gold is sitting at that 38.2 fib level. We should see increased volume on gold. There we go, nice big fat wick on gold. However, because we've got mixed bag of data, we're still not in the clear in terms of avoiding any sort of whipsaw in this area. So if you're looking at securing, again, this is US 30. If you're looking at having a stop loss, don't be too greedy. Don't have that stop loss too high because markets might take that out. Again, as markets look at the data and as economists understand what data is going to be more important right now, this is going to cause a ton of sideways volume in the markets. As long as your stop loss is in profit, you are in a good position to ride this one out. I'm not going to be moving my stop loss very aggressively into profit. My stop loss is currently sitting at the 32200 mark. Again, because we're sitting in that mixed bag of data, we may end up even just taking profit at that level, right? Just having a look at the dollar index this afternoon, dollar index has suffered a major push and spike through that support level, right? Again, this is the dollar index on a 30-minute time frame. Dollar index was sitting keenly on support here, but again, that dollar move there is obviously breaking that. I am closed out at this point in time on US 30, closed out there for what it looks like plus minus about $10,000 on that current position. Again, because I'm not willing to ride that stop loss further into profit. We saw a massive whipsaw this afternoon. Let's see, 2,800 pips in terms of that. But I do think the dollar will continue to benefit, or sorry, the dollar will continue to hemorrhage losses based on this data. Unemployment has rose to 3.6%. Remember that 3.4% was a 54-year low. And I do believe that, let's just quickly get that back up on our screen here. Right, that 3.4% was a 54-year low, and that was the argument of the Fed. So I do think we will continue to see some upwards momentum here, and so I'm more than likely going to be essentially jumping in on another position there and just holding out a little bit of a longer trade there. I do think markets will continue to interpret this as negative for the dollar. And again, this is going to be one of the biggest negative dollar hits we've seen in quite a while. And again, this is based on the Fed testimony from Powell and Congress over the last couple of days. The job market was the big talking point, right? Now, seeing the unemployment rate move up to the 3.6% gives Powell all the ammo he needs, or at least gives him the cushioning he needs not to be as aggressive with his interest rate announcements, to say, hey, listen, the US economy is slowing down. Unemployment has rose to the 3.6%. It's still a far call off the 4.4% that the Federal Reserve has forecast in order to get inflation down to the numbers that they need to see. But it at least is something for him to consider in terms of his ammunition. So it'd be nice to see what materializes with the dollar over the course of this afternoon, especially leading up into markets for tomorrow, or at least into Monday. So looking again at the dollar index is still hemorrhaging a little bit there towards the downside, and again way past support, meaning there's not much holding the dollar at the moment from a clear support perspective. So it's going to be very interesting this afternoon over what we end up seeing here as a total result for that dollar index. Let's have a look quickly at some commodities. Brent's looking largely unaffected. 1 minute time frame, let's quickly get that update there. Brent looking largely unaffected by this move. Again, obviously, weaker dollar will cause Brent to also have a little bit of a spike. I think for Brent crude specifically, we'd need to clear some of these highs, and it's definitely these rising highs. So on Brent crude, nothing too big there to celebrate. But I think the interesting case this afternoon is definitely going to be what's going to be happening on gold, right? Is there enough gas in the tank on this dollar weakness to allow gold to break through that 38.2, right? Again, gold breaking through that 38.2 will allow gold to be in this new territory to start to make these higher highs and start to push back into the 1855s, 1860 territory, which I think is going to be substantial. USD ZAR, right, is a trade that we were in from, I believe, about Wednesday. USD ZAR pushing nicely down. Again, the dollar weakness, ZAR is going to use all of that to potentially move towards its benefits over the next coming days. So USD ZAR definitely one to keep an eye out on. Again, if we continue to see some losses here, that's definitely going to be some sort of moves we want to definitely pay attention to. DXY, Ben is saying, Ben Capital ICT Solutions saying, DXY was giving off some nice sell set-offs. How do you sell indices? Let's see here. How do you sell indices? Ben Capital, it's all about price action. We were actually selling indices and in profit. We've been doing this all week, every single day in profit. So again, if you're only basing your positions on the dollar index, remember the dollar index is basketed against all currencies. So the dollar index can actually go up and you can physically see correlation break on other items. Again, if you have a look at the dollar index and track it against NASDAQ as well as Dow Jones, you'll see the correlation is not always there. Again, because the dollar index is most heavily weighted against the euro, then the pound, and then the yen, you'll often find the correlation only works from time to time and not always across the board. So again, it's up to you how you wish to proceed with your analysis. That is the beautiful thing about analysis. It is pretty much up to you to decide what it is you want to do there. Beautiful stuff. Let's see who jumped in. DR Debongs, welcome to the community. So dollar index is pushing off nicely there. Again, dollar index was previously sitting in a decent area of support previously. That is a breakthrough of support. So let's have a look if we're seeing any other currency big moves here. Nothing much else across the board. And I do think this whipsaw is essentially going to have to materialize and or play out. Markets are going to absorb this data. In terms of just where we are, I just want to point out we might start to see a little bit of a flag formation start to form where, the US 30 specifically will end up, sidewinding a little bit and then thereafter starting to move in a direction. So if you're a little bit uncertain about trajectory at this moment in time, allow this sideways movement to play out and then look for an entry should you start to break out this little bit of a sideways movement there. Let's just quickly give a look into NAS. Yeah. So NAS, very similar type of issue here. Markets built up. We're seeing a very, very similar type of flag formation here. And again, it's going to pretty much come down to where is it going to break out once we get rid of that consolidation. NAS is actually showing us a little bit more of a pennant formation. And I think that's going to be key. NAS sometimes is a little bit truer from a price action perspective. You'll see markets will build out to the point of an apex and then a breakout. So if you're a little bit unsure, right, allow this little bit of a sideways movement to take its course, right? Once that started a breakout process, then look for a direction. In addition to that, the New York Stock Exchange open is about 50 minutes, exactly 50 minutes away from where we are currently at. So again, once the New York Stock Exchange opens, it'll generally also reveal its direction, right? If traders and specifically hedge funds have iceberged some trades for a particular direction, then you will see that revealed on the New York Stock Exchange open, right? Again, if you're part of our daily sessions in terms of trading the New York Stock Exchange, you'll know that the initial move is sometimes just the icebergs being shown, and we may still look for that 5 o'clock reversal this afternoon. Again, depending how markets interpret this data, whether the market's going to look at the unemployment rates and give that favor. For me, in my personal opinion, the market may consider that 3.6% as everything that Powell needed from an ammunition, or at least a landing perspective, to not have to hammer the markets later on with a higher interest rate. So I think they may favor that, and the markets may take relief from that. So I'll be very keen to look for some buy breakouts and some of these price action formations for this afternoon. But again, it's completely up to you and how you would like to deal with that data. So let's have a look here. New York Stock Exchange, again, as I mentioned, is sitting at 4:30 this afternoon. And again, if you're a Globex 360 account holder, you know that we have an advanced strategy in terms of that turnaround at 5 o'clock and what to look for that turnaround. But outside of that, gold looking to break out nicely, looking at that dollar weakness, beautiful stuff. Ideally, in some of these breakout situations where we are clearly, pressed through a very hard territory, try not to trade necessarily just the breakout itself. Allow the markets to pull back, allow the markets to consolidate, and then once they build momentum, essentially on the retest, right? What I'm saying is don't always just buy the breakout or sell the breakout, wait for the retest to be confirmed. Let's look at ZAR if there's any sort of price action here. No, there's no price action whatsoever, just a massive whipsaw. Again, as we saw a little bit earlier. So across the board, it's pretty much a little bit broken across the board. Beautiful stuff. Wolves, I think I've just mentioned about gold. Let's see what else is happening there. Let's see how we go. Who's saying sell? I'm not selling this one. It's a buy. DXY is giving it off. What? Ben Capital, you said earlier that DXY is giving you a buy, and then later on you're saying, but why DXY was giving you a sell? Was DXY giving you a buy or a sell, or it's giving you both? Ben Capital saying DXY was giving off a nice sell setup. So how do you sell indices? What? Ben? Okay, it's your comment. You're entitled to it. You do your thing. It's your comment, my brother. You do your thing. If you're saying buy and then you say sell later, no issues whatsoever. Again, our job is not to predict the markets, right? When you start to think you can predict the markets, markets will humble you. It's about taking the data available to you and making a calculated decision. When you start to do that as a trader, you start to evolve your level of thinking. It doesn't matter what the market is, doesn't matter what the position is, you're able to tackle it. Whether it be pure price action, whether it be NFP, whether it be fundamentals, you're able to tackle that in a way that's clear and or concise. Listen, just as a side note, while we're waiting for markets, just give us a little bit further of a directory and direction. Do we have an update on the trade and win? Okay, so in terms of our trade and win, guys, in terms of the leaderboard will be updated in a few minutes for now. But again, if you want to stand a chance to get your account funded with $40,000, we are running the trade and win competition. Super simple, super easy. All you need to do is trade USDZAR. The clients with the highest trading volume by the end of the month, right, stands a chance, top 3, to get their accounts funded to the value of that 40,000 Rand, right? Again, there's only 14.8 lots as of yesterday sitting in the top. So you definitely have an opportunity right there. And it doesn't take a lot to get into that leader spot. Super easy, super simple. If it's for you, great. If it's not for you, so be it. Quickly just switching back to the US 30. In terms of our current positionings, US 30 is certainly starting to make what looks like those higher lows. But again, we just want to see that true market breakout in terms of where it wants to go. You might also see a pennant formation there. But again, I think NASDAQ is going to be the cleaner of the two to give us a representation there. NASDAQ looking like it's starting to break out of that little bit of a consolidated view. But again, we just want some sort of clear consensus there in terms of where that new high is going to be sitting before any sort of decision is made there. I'm going to be getting out of my my little buy there, or as close to humanly entry as possible, as we allow that New York Stock Exchange to open up. We caught some profit in terms of that sell this afternoon. We've caught some profit in terms of that spike buy up on the $10,000 already this afternoon. We've profited throughout the week. I believe this week we're sitting in well over, I think it's about 12 or 13,000 pips for the week in terms of combined trades through our live sessions. So I can honestly say it's been a great week. However, we still have a lot more to come, right? There is still a bunch of data. We have the CPI, we have the PPI, and again, we have the Federal Reserve interest rate discussion. We are going to be covering all of these live, breaking them down, taking trade ideas, trading these things all together. So definitely, if you want to be a part of that, all you need to do is have a Globex 360 live account. As simple as that. Minimum of $100. You get the links, you get the access to the broadcast, access to the shows, and you're able to take advantage of that. Now, what I would say personally, what I'm going to be looking for this afternoon is waiting for that New York Stock Exchange open 4:30. Understand where most of the hedge funds and where the market's going to be putting their trades, and you'll see that initial movement. In this particular case, I do believe we could see continuations to the top side, specifically on the Dow Jones as well as the NASDAQ. And then if the 5 o'clock is still in that favor, then you can continue to ride that volume out to the top side. The one item we didn't have a look at is German 30, and German 30 also reacted extremely positive to that weaker dollar data, right? German 30 actually was the first to start to break out to that little bit of a consolidated view there. So maybe that gave away the hint beforehand. I don't know. It's up to you to decide what it is that you do want to do there. Guys, listen, it's been a stressful week. It's been a great week full of a ton of live events and a ton of trade opportunities. As always, we appreciate your time. Again, if you're part of the setup for this NFP events, you would understand a lot more about what it is that we are preparing for and what we are looking forward to in terms of power and some of the objectives the Federal Reserve is going to place on the US economy. There's never been a time like this in trading history, right? In terms of the politics, in terms of the numbers, in terms of the data, recession, pandemics, you name it, it is a beautiful time to be alive, and to be able to trade through it is obviously the key. So again, as always, if you want to be a part of that, super simple. Down below, the link to open up your Globex 360 live account, the link down below to direct Telegram me, and as well as the link down below to jump into our Telegram group. If you want to do that and be a part of that, we are live every single day to our community, our MVTs, our MVPs. I see a couple of you guys in here: Garrett, Ivan, Page, Lana. Let's see who else is in here. Rizzy, Shamim, I can see you in there. Cohen, I can see in there, as well as a beautiful Miss Marsha Bart. I can see our MVTs in the chat. Just a massive well done to every single one of you for an amazing, amazing week. Guys, outside of that, as always, you know the drill. Remember to live, learn, and trade the Globex 360 way. And until I see you guys on Monday with our market forecast of what's happening over the next week, have yourselves an absolutely amazing and blessed weekend. And I'll see you all a little bit later. Goodbye.